Hey, RMJ Movie Reviews back again. And this time I decided to, with so much controversy surrounding Denzel Washington and Gladiator 2, directed by Ridley Scott, I felt like I should create a list of my personal top 6, I know 6, I'm using an even number, underrated, badass Denzel Washington movies. Flight. Now, one of the things about Flight is Denzel Washington approached this film, obviously, where he plays a pilot and a man who's suffering from alcohol addiction and drug addiction. Denzel Washington, this is a very different kind of part for him. He's played very dark and vulnerable parts before in the past, but this time, Skip Whitaker is just the most down and dirty, just pathetic kind of character that you've ever seen Denzel play. I mean, there's a scene where he's got his backside out, and this ain't no Denzel, doing squats backside. It's like a man in his 60s, how his backside would look. It's a very brave part, not an easy thing to perform at all for any actor. And I like the fact that I just recently read that Denzel Washington actually had just recently admitted, I guess he had a problem with alcohol for like 10 or 12 years. So what really that means in alcoholic terms is probably 30 years or 20, 22 or more. Alcoholics always like to shave the truth a little bit. And trust me, it's a very authentic film in the way it presents just that inner destruction of an alcoholic. Very brave role for Denzel to play. I love that film, especially his confession scene at the end. Just excellent work. The Mighty Quinn. This is one of Denzel Washington's really early roles. I believe The Mighty Quinn was 1989, I think. I love this film. This is kind of the beginning of Denzel playing detectives, because since this was 1989, Denzel hadn't really got to that point where he had started doing these, very tough cop roles, So this was a beginning movie for him, a beginning starring role. And you can see that Denzel is very, very young in this movie, but he still has that commanding Denzel presence. And the fact that Denzel, I think, is probably maybe in his 30s at this is not, maybe he's 35, 34, somewhere in there, but he's very young. You got Cheryl Lee Ralph, who's playing the mother of his son in the film. Excellent. Now, also, you have Mimi Rogers as well, and the great Robert Townsend, who directed Hollywood Shuffle, which I'm going to review the Blu-ray very, very soon. It actually had an interracial kiss between Denzel Washington and Mimi Rogers. Coincidentally, 6 Degrees of Separation of Denzel. Ridley Scott, who directed Denzel in a bunch of movies, including the newest Gladiator 2, he also directed Mimi Rogers in Someone to Watch Over Me, starring Tom Berenger. Either way, they had an interracial kiss. Apparently, test audiences freaked out. I'm paraphrasing Denzel, but according to him, according to Denzel, his quote, white men did not like the kiss and black women did not like the kiss, so they removed it from the film. That's Denzel's words. It's on IMDb. It's not mine. Very sad, very pathetic in my opinion, but it is what it is. But I will say, one of the cool things about The Mighty Quinn, aside from it being his first commanding, starring cop kind of role, is to see him work opposite Robert Townsend, who was just really known for kind of, I believe 5 Heartbeats might have been this same year or the next year, or maybe 5 Heartbeats was 2 years later. But Robert Townsend had done Partners in Crime for HBO, Hollywood Shuffle, Body Slam. Oh God, I'm dating myself, y'all. Y'all remember that movie, Body Slam? It had WWF wrestlers in the time. To number 4 on my list, Ricochet from 1990. I love Ricochet, y'all. First of all, it ticks me off that I have not heard Russell McCulley, I think is how you say your name, the gentleman who directed Highlander 1 and 2. He hasn't mentioned the film. John Lithgow hasn't mentioned the film. Denzel has never mentioned the film. Ice-T has never mentioned the film. Joe Silver, who produced it, has never mentioned the film. To my understanding, this movie was a marginal box office hit. I do remember wanting to see it really bad when it came out, because I was maybe like 9 or 10 or something. I think I was like 9 years old when this came out. It wasn't out very long, but when I saw it, and my father let me rent Ricochet from the video store when I was like 10 years old. Imagine that, y'all. I don't think I'd let my children watch Ricochet now. Ricochet is such a hardcore sleazy action film, and I do mean that word. Like it definitely in the vein of like I'd probably say like Death Wish 2. But since Joe Silver's producing, you have to have your trademark nudity, graphic violence, abusive language, one-liners, and I think Stephen E. D'Souza, who did the score for, or excuse me, who wrote Die Hard 2 and wrote Commando, and he wrote and directed Street Fighter with Jean-Claude Van Damme, if you all remember that movie. He wrote the script for Ricochet, so there's definitely, you feel those Joe Silver tones in the movie. And John Lithgow is the ultimate villain in this movie, man. I mean, he is the most psychopathic, disgusting, vicious, scary, dangerous human being you could probably come across. And Denzel took him down young in his career, so, you know, Denzel got promoted from a beat cop, which he plays in the film, to the district attorney, where he's putting, like, all these horrible, heinous criminals. But it's a very well done film, and Denzel gets to play so many different layers in Ricochet. He gets to play suave, Mighty Quinn, sexy Denzel. Then he gets to play kind of Pelican Brief, Philadelphia grown man Denzel, like he's a lawyer now. And then he gets to kind of play cuckoo drug addict Denzel, because if you saw the film, which I'm not going to give it away, John Lithgow escapes from prison and he exacts a plan of revenge against Denzel Washington for ruining his career criminal rampage. And he goes about it by planning inappropriate child material on him, having him be raped by an escort, in which case she passes on to him a VD. It's crazy, man. It's pretty down and dirty. And I remember Siskel and Ebert had a lot to say about kind of those particular issues I mentioned. To my understanding, there was an even darker scene in the film where John Lithgow is kind of psychologically terrorizing Denzel Washington, and I think he throws up on himself. And to my understanding, the test audiences were very upset because it was the feeling of like, oh, this is what I read on IMDb, that it's a white man physically abusing this black man. And it was also, now I also had read something, now I don't know if this is true, I had read there was an alleged version where John Lithgow raped Denzel. I don't know if that's true. Look it up, I've heard it, I don't know. But Ricochet is just a crazy, psychotic, insane, sleazy action picture from the early 90s. They would never even make a movie like this anymore. It's great. Now, the number 3 movie, Devil in a Blue Dress. It's a fantastic piece of work. It's a neo-noir thriller that actually takes place in the 40s in South Central Los Angeles, which was very different for this time, because I believe Devil in a Blue Dress came out in 1995, so I was like 13, 7th grade in middle school. Again, that was one, because there was a period where Denzel had some really big hits in the early 90s, and then he had a little tiny lull in the middle in the 90s, and then he kind of came back with Training Day, which kind of brought him back. He started making more and more money again. Denzel Washington isn't really like the typical like hero guy. Like, he's a dude who's like down on his luck. He's struggling to survive. He just wants to keep his house up. So he kind of takes this job to find this woman, played by the great Jessica Biel, and he gets hired by the great late Tom Sizemore, who can always play these devilishly racist, disgusting characters. To digress a minute, I had heard a story when they were making, Tony Scott was directing Will Smith in Enemy of the State, that apparently, you know, Tom Sizemore had all these rumors going around with him in Hollywood at the time with Heidi Fleiss. Y'all can look all that up if y'all don't know about that. With Heidi Fleiss and street workers and all this kind of thing. He's a wild dude. So I guess Tony Scott was doing that to get Will Smith in that sense of being afraid of Tom Sizemore. And I guess Sizemore was in on it. He wanted to freak Will Smith out, and they did a scene where Sizemore got so worked up that he called Will Smith the N-word. And Will Smith was like, he called me this, he called me that. I mean, I don't know, maybe I might have fought him, you know, I might have you know, I'm Will Smith. I could punch him and get away with it. I mean, he obviously smacked Chris Rock. Why didn't he smack Tom Sizemore? I don't know. But anyway, it's a side note. But also in the film is also Don Cheadle. Don Cheadle pops up in the film. Man, Don Cheadle, he plays his friend Mouse, who I read a comment on IMDb one time to one of the Devil in the Blue Dress, excuse me, not IMDb, YouTube, one of the clips to Devil in the Blue Dress between Denzel Washington and Don Cheadle, and somebody put in the comment section that Don Cheadle's character is probably Old Dog from Menace to Society's grandfather. I just died. And when you meet this character, he is not well. He is not well, and you can see that even Denzel Washington, that's supposed to be his boy, even he's afraid of him. You know, and there's so many cool scenes, and then there's this really terribly, devilishly kind of scene at the end. Now, I'm not gonna give it away, but Denzel Washington asked Don Cheadle, "Why did you do this?" And he goes, "Well, hey, what do you think I was gonna do? I mean, this is what I do." You know, it's very creepy, and it's disturbing, but it's kind of darkly, psychotically funny a little bit but watch that movie. It's just such a well done film. And also, I want to also mention for us horror fans out there, Bo Starr, who played the sheriff in Halloween 4 and 5, he actually plays a dirty racist cop in this movie. And it's not as edgy as One False Move, but it still has that dark grit to it. You know, very well done film. I wish more people would have seen it, but it came and went when it came out. All right. We're going to move on to a really good movie that I know a lot of people probably haven't heard of, called Mississippi Masala. But this was a small love story between an American black man and an Indian woman, and how their surrounding families and cultures react to their romance. It's actually a pretty deep and heavy movie, and it also really highlights kind of that really tough dynamic that goes on between Black Americans and people who come over from other countries, from other cultures. I'm saying this in context of the film, and how there's a lot of things that people from other countries carry with them that kind of makes sense to me, and it feels very genuine. And I say, watching the film now as a man who's 43, it feels very genuine. It feels very mature. It just feels like a real warm interaction between two adults. It's very well done. I wish I could see more romances like that portrayed in films. Very good film. I love it. You all should check it out. It's very well done. Okay, number one on the list, and this just had to go. A Soldier Story from 1983. I believe Norman Jewison directed that film. I could be wrong. Nobody beat me up if I am wrong. But it starred, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the gentleman's name from In the Heat of the Night. I'll just put it on the bottom because I can't remember right now. But it stars him. He's passed on. Obviously, Denzel Washington is not the star because it was early in his career, but he has a part in the film. He plays Peterson. The great Art Evans. Robert Townsend shows up in it. Wings Hauser shows up in it. Patti LaBelle has a song. Adolph Caesar. David Allen Greer. Now this film goes a little bit heavier because it more expands on racism and classism between blacks. Because basically there's a murder that takes place on this military base in I believe it's in Alabama, and it's during the 40s. And because the surrounding Caucasian neighborhoods don't want all these black soldiers here, they think that one of the white locals actually murdered this sergeant, which is named Sergeant Waters. Now there's a big stigma around the base that Sergeant Waters was not liked by his men, which Sergeant Waters is black, and he operates the all-black unit. And there were rumors of it. In particular, there was a lot of tension between Denzel Washington's character Peterson and Sergeant Waters. But also there's a character in there named CJ who is perceived by Sergeant Waters to be, I'm going to use a politically incorrect term, shuffling and bucking and singing and all that stuff. And Sergeant Waters really makes it his mission to basically dispense with what he believes to be unworthy black folks who, in his mind, destroy the race. You know, we could go real heavy to apply that now, but I don't even want to go there because that's a whole lot to unpack and folks will get real upset. I know it was actually a play first. It was called a Soldier's Play that was in the, I think it's a very powerful, uncomfortable story about, you know, hatred amongst black people. It's a heavy flick, man. It's very heavy. So that's my list of the top 6 badass underrated Denzel Washington movies and performances. So thumbs up the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and if you don't like the movies that I listed, you could just go ahead and watch The Bridges of Madison County.